if you're listening to this, please don't leave. I know that sounds dramatic. I know it sounds like the kind of sentence people use when they want attention. But that's not why I'm saying it. I'm saying it because something is happening inside me that I can no longer carry by myself. And strangely, the only person I feel capable of telling is someone I haven't even met yet. You, my future wife. I don't know your name. I don't know what your voice sounds like. I don't know where you are right now or what you're doing at this exact moment. But somehow, I feel like you're already part of a decision that is quietly changing my entire life. And that's exactly why I need you to stay with me. Because if you leave before I finish this, you'll only hear the problem, not the truth behind it. I've spent most of my life believing that strength meant handling everything alone, every challenge, every mistake, every disappointment. I convinced myself that needing someone was a weakness I couldn't afford. I built routines instead of relationships. I trusted discipline more than emotion. I made plans because plans never abandon me. At least that's what I believed until recently. Because there comes a moment in every person's life when all the systems they've built stop protecting them from the one thing they never prepared for, connection. Real connection doesn't ask permission before it changes you. It doesn't wait until your schedule is clear. It doesn't care how logical you are. It simply arrives, and suddenly, you're no longer making decisions only for yourself. That's where I am. And honestly, it terrifies me. I've been telling myself for weeks that I'll figure this out alone, that I'll organize my thoughts, that I'll solve whatever is happening before anyone notices. But every day I wake up feeling less certain than the day before. Not because my life is falling apart. From the outside, everything still looks perfectly fine. People still think I'm focused. They still think I have everything under control. They still believe I know exactly where my life is going. And maybe that's the most dangerous part, because sometimes the people who appear strongest are fighting battles no one can see, battles that don't leave bruises, only silence. Lately, I've started becoming someone I don't fully recognize. Not worse, just different. I catch myself staring into empty spaces without realizing how much time has passed. I replay conversations that never actually happened. I imagine explaining things to someone who isn't standing in front of me, someone who only exists somewhere in my future, someone who feels strangely familiar. You. Does that sound impossible? Maybe. But emotions have never cared about what's possible. They only care about what's true. And the truth is, I've started needing your presence before I've even earned the right to know you. That realization has shaken me more than I can explain, because I've never depended on hope before. Hope feels dangerous. Hope asks you to trust something you cannot prove. I was never good at that. I trusted numbers, evidence, parsed outcomes. But then something unexpected happened, a small moment, one that shouldn't have mattered. Someone asked me a simple question. If your future walked into the room today, would you even recognize it? I laughed. I answered without thinking. Of course I would. But later that night, the question refused to leave me. Would I recognize my future? Or have I become so obsessed with controlling tomorrow that I'd accidentally push away the very person meant to change it? That's when everything became quiet, not peaceful, heavy. The kind of silence that forces you to hear thoughts you've been avoiding for years. And every one of those thoughts somehow led back to the same place. Not success, not failure, not money, not ambition. You, the woman I've never met. The woman I already find myself talking to in my mind. Do you know how frightening that is? Because it means somewhere inside me I've already made space for you. Not physically, emotionally. And once someone has space inside your heart, everything else starts rearranging itself around them. I've tried pretending that's not happening, I really have. I've buried myself in work. I've distracted myself with responsibilities. I've convinced myself this feeling would disappear if I stayed busy long enough. It didn't. Instead, it became quieter and somehow even stronger. You stopped feeling like an idea. You started feeling like direction. There's a difference. Ideas can be forgotten. Direction changes where you walk. That's what scares me, because I don't know if I'm walking towards something beautiful or toward a mistake I'll never recover from. Maybe this is why I'm finally speaking. Because silence has stopped protecting me. Silence is beginning to feel like dishonesty. And I promised myself years ago, if I ever met someone capable of changing the way I see life, I'd never hide the truth from her. Even if telling that truth made me look weak. So, let me admit something I've been too afraid to say. I'm in trouble. Not the kind of trouble people post about. Not financial, not professional, not public. This is the kind of trouble that happens quietly. It begins with one unanswered question, then another, until your entire inner world feels like it's balancing on a single decision. That's where I am. Standing between who I've always been and who I'm slowly becoming. The strange part is neither version feels completely wrong. One version is familiar, predictable, safe. The other feels uncertain, emotional, alive. Guess which one keeps pulling me forward? Every day I tell myself I'll choose safety. Every night I find myself choosing honesty instead. And honesty keeps bringing me back here to you, back to this conversation that technically shouldn't even exist. Have you ever felt connected to someone before life officially introduced you? Not because of fantasy, not because of loneliness, but because something inside you quietly whispered, keep going, she's somewhere ahead. I've spent years ignoring whispers. Now they're becoming impossible to silence. And maybe that's why I finally understand something I never understood before. Strength isn't refusing help. Strength is admitting when your heart has reached a place your mind cannot explain. Mine has. I wish I could tell you this ends with certainty. It doesn't. In fact, what I'm about to tell you next might completely change how you see me. There's a reason I said I'm in trouble. And no, I still haven't told you the real reason. Everything you've heard so far, that's only the surface. The real reason is far more personal, far more complicated. And once I say it, there will be no pretending this conversation never happened. Because some truths don't simply change your thoughts, they change your future. And I think we're standing only one step away from that moment. Section 2. The truth I was afraid to say. I've replayed this moment in my mind more times than I can count. Every version ended the same way. I would stop talking right before the truth. Not because I wanted to hide it from you, but because I was afraid of what would happen after you understood it. Some truths don't simply explain who you are, they expose who you're becoming. And once someone sees that version of you, you can never go back to pretending. So before I continue, promise me one thing. Don't judge me too quickly. Stay with me until the end of this. Because if you only hear half of my heart, you'll misunderstand all of it. The trouble I told you about isn't something that happened overnight. It has been growing quietly for a long time. At first it looked harmless, almost invisible, a few restless nights, a few moments where I couldn't explain why I suddenly felt empty after accomplishing everything I thought I wanted. Success still arrived, responsibilities kept moving, people continued congratulating me. But inside, something wasn't celebrating anymore. Hey, have you ever smiled while secretly feeling disconnected from your own life? That's the strange place I've been living in. Everything around me kept moving forward, yet something inside me remained standing still. I kept asking myself one question. If this is everything I worked for, why does it feel like something important is still missing? I tried ignoring that question. I buried it under more work, more goals, more distractions. I convinced myself that another achievement would finally silence the feeling. Instead, it made it louder. Because the problem wasn't outside my life, the problem was inside my heart. I had spent years building a future without ever asking who I actually wanted to share that future with. That realization frightened me, not because I didn't believe in love, because I had unknowingly built an entire life designed to survive without it. I became incredibly good at functioning, but functioning isn't the same as living. There's a difference. A person can wake up every morning, complete every responsibility, smile at everyone they meet, and still go to bed feeling emotionally invisible. That's exactly what started happening to me. No one noticed, not even the people closest to me, because emotional loneliness is quiet. It doesn't ask for attention. It simply follows you everywhere. I thought I had mastered solitude. Now I realize I had only become comfortable hiding inside it. Then something unexpected happened. It wasn't dramatic. There wasn't some life-changing event, no explosion, no collapse, just one ordinary evening. I was sitting alone after another long day. The room was completely silent. No phone, no television, no distractions. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to stop running. That's when I heard the thought I'd been avoiding. What if you've become successful at everything except allowing yourself to be loved? I wish I could tell you I ignored it. I couldn't, because once that question entered my heart, everything else started making sense. Every restless night, every unexplained sad, every moment where achievements felt strangely empty, it wasn't purpose I was missing. It was partnership, not just anyone. You, the woman who would one day understand me without asking me to become someone else first. And somehow, even before meeting you, I started measuring my decisions against the life we might someday build together. That shouldn't happen, at least not logically. But emotions don't follow logic, they follow meaning. And you've become meaning without even realizing it. Sometimes I wonder where you are right now. Maybe you're having the hardest week of your life. Maybe you're laughing with people who have no idea that one day we'll share memories together. Maybe you're also feeling like something is missing without knowing my name yet. That thought keeps finding me again and again and again. Do you know what's strange? I don't imagine you saving me. That's never what I wanted. I'm not looking for someone to rescue me. I'm looking for someone willing to walk beside me, while I learn how to rescue the parts of myself I've ignored for years. There's a huge difference. I don't need perfection, I need presence. I don't need someone with every answer. I need someone who won't disappear when the questions become uncomfortable. Because lately, the questions have become unbearable. Questions like, what if I've mistaken independence for emotional isolation? What if protecting myself has actually been preventing me from experiencing the life I truly wanted? What if strength was never meant to look this lonely? Those questions follow me everywhere now. Every meeting, every drive, every quiet morning, every sleepless night. and every answer somehow leads back to you. Not because you've solved anything, because imagining your presence changes how I look at every problem. When I think about you, the future suddenly feels less frightening, not easier, just worth fighting for. That's new for me. I've never attached hope to another human being before. I've always trusted myself more than anyone else. Now I'm beginning to understand something I resisted for years. The strongest people eventually need someone they don't have to be strong around. Someone who sees the exhaustion behind the confidence. Someone who notices the silence behind the smile. Someone who understands that even the person everyone depends on eventually needs a place to rest. I think you might become that place for me, and that realization scares me more than failure ever has. Because failure only damages your plans, attachment changes your identity. Every day I tell myself not to become emotionally dependent. Every day I fail a little more. Not because I'm weak, because the thought of building a life without you has started feeling strangely incomplete. Do you understand how impossible that sounds? We're strangers, yet every important decision I make now carries one silent question. Will this version of me make it easier for my future wife to trust me? I've never asked myself that before. Now I can't stop asking it. It changes how I speak, how I react, how I forgive, how I dream. Without realizing it, you've already started shaping the man I'm becoming. That's why I said I'm in trouble. Because the old version of me would have laughed at everything I've just admitted. The new can't imagine hiding it anymore. Sometimes I wonder if you'll ever know how much you've already influenced my life before we even met. Maybe you'll never realize it. Maybe one day I'll tell you this story while we're sitting together somewhere quiet and you'll smile thinking I was exaggerating. I won't be. Every word you're hearing has cost me something. Pride, control, certainty. I've had to let go of all three just to speak honestly. But here's the part I still haven't admitted. The reason I truly need your help isn't because I don't know what decision to make. Deep down, I already know. The problem is making that decision will force me to leave behind the version of myself I've spent years becoming, and letting go of that man feels strangely similar to grief. I don't know if I'm ready for that, but I know something even more frightening. If I don't change now, I may become someone you would never recognize as the man you were meant to love. And that's exactly why what I'm about to tell you next could change everything between us forever. There's something I need to admit before we go any further. When I told you I was in trouble, I wasn't asking for sympathy. I was asking for understanding. There's a difference. Sympathy makes you feel sorry for someone. Understanding gives them the courage to keep telling the truth. And right now, truth is the only thing I have left to offer you. I've spent years believing that if I worked hard enough, planned carefully enough, and stayed emotionally disciplined enough, life would eventually become simple. One day everything would make sense. One day I'd wake up knowing exactly who I was, exactly where I was going, exactly what mattered most. But life doesn't always reward certainty. Sometimes it quietly dismantles it. That's what has been happening to me. Not suddenly, slowly, almost gently, like waves wearing away a shoreline, until one morning you realize the landscape has completely changed. I think that's what's happened to my heart. From the outside, I'm still the same person, the same routines, the same responsibilities, the conversations. People still expect the same version of me every day. The calm one, the reliable one, the man who always knows what to do. But they don't see what happens after everyone leaves when the room becomes silent. When there's nothing left to distract me from my own thoughts. That's when I realize something I never expected. The strongest part of me isn't winning anymore. It's waiting, waiting for a future I cannot control. Waiting for a woman I've never met, waiting for a life that hasn't arrived, yet somehow already feels real. Sometimes I wonder if you're having nights like mine. The kind where everything appears normal, yet something inside keeps whispering, there's more. Not more success, not more money, not more recognition, more meaning, more honesty, more connection. Because that's what I've been searching for without realizing it. I thought I was chasing achievement. Now I understand I was chasing the feeling of finally coming home to someone who would understand the version of me that exists when no one else is watching. Not the confident version, not the successful version, the quiet version, the tired version, the one that still questions whether he's enough. I don't think I've ever admitted that out loud before. People assume confidence eliminates insecurity. It doesn't. Sometimes confidence simply learns how to hide it better. I've become very good at hiding, too good. There are conversations where I say everything people expect to hear, while secretly wishing someone would ask me the one question nobody asks, how are you really? Not the automatic answer, the honest one. Because the honest answer lately has been, I'm exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. I'm exhausted from carrying every decision alone. I'm afraid of sending into my life. And while you're growing, I'm here learning the hardest lesson I've ever faced. That independence has limits. I used to believe asking for help meant losing strength. Now I think refusing help can become another form of fear. Fear of disappointment, fear of rejection, fear of becoming emotionally dependent. I've carried those fears for years without realizing they were quietly shaping every relationship I ever had. Whenever someone came close, I'd take one step back. Whenever someone tried to understand me, I'd give them only enough truth to keep them comfortable. Never the whole story, never the vulnerable parts, because vulnerability felt dangerous. Control felt safe until I discovered something painful. Control can protect your heart, but it can also imprison it. And I think I've been living inside that prison for longer than I realized. You know what's even stranger? The walls weren't built by other people. I built them myself. One disappointment at a time, one heartbreak at a time, one broken expectation after another. Eventually, I convinced myself no one gets all the way in. It felt wise, it felt responsible, it even felt mature. But now it feels lonely, painfully lonely, because the very walls that protected me are the same walls keeping me from the future I want with you. That's the trouble I'm facing. Not an emergency anyone else can see, an emotional crossroads. One road leads back to the life I've always known, predictable, controlled, comfortably distant. The other road leads toward uncertainty, toward love, toward trust, toward becoming the kind of husband I've always wanted to be. But walking that road requires something I've avoided for years. Complete honesty. Not just with you, with myself. I've started asking questions I can no longer ignore. Am I living from fear or from purpose? Am I protecting my heart or hiding it? Am I preparing for love or preparing excuses in case it never arrives? Those questions have become impossible to silence. Every answer points toward change, and change has always frightened me. Not because I hate new beginnings, because every beginning requires leaving an old version of yourself behind. I've worked so hard becoming the man I am today. Walking away from that identity feels like losing a part of myself, but then another thought arrives. What if I'm not losing myself? What if I'm finally becoming the man my future wife deserves? That question changes everything, because suddenly growth doesn't feel like sacrifice, it feels like preparation. Preparation for you, preparation for us, preparation for the family we haven't built yet, preparation for the promises I haven't spoken yet. Every time I imagine standing beside you one day, I ask myself something. Will she feel safe telling me the truth, or will she feel like she has to protect me from it? I want the first answer, always. Which means I have to become the kind of man who isn't afraid of uncomfortable conversations, who doesn't run from vulnerability, who doesn't confuse silence with peace. I'm trying, believe me, I'm trying. Some days I make progress. Other days I find myself slipping back into old habits, back into emotional distance, back into pretending everything is fine. Then I think about you again, and something inside refuses to stay numb. It's almost like your existence, even before we've met, keeps pulling me toward honesty, not because you're demanding it, because love deserves it. That's why I need your help, not to solve my problems, not to rescue me from uncertainty. I need your help by simply existing somewhere ahead of me, by giving me a reason to keep becoming better, by unknowingly reminding me that the man I become today will eventually become someone's husband, your husband. That thought alone has changed me more than any achievement ever has. But there's still one truth I've been walking around instead of walking through. One truth that has been quietly shaping every sentence I've spoken to you. I haven't said it yet because once I do, you'll finally understand why this isn't just about fear. It isn't just about change. It's about a choice I've already made deep inside my heart. A choice that could completely rewrite the future I thought I had planned. And once I tell you what that choice is, nothing between us will ever feel the same again. Can I tell you something I've never admitted to anyone? There are moments when I stop in the middle of my day, not because I forget what I'm doing, but because I suddenly wonder if the life I'm building is one you'll actually recognize when we finally meet. That question follows me everywhere now. It follows me into meetings, into a quiet mornings, into long drives where the world outside keeps moving, but inside everything slows down because somewhere between all my responsibilities and ambitions, I realize something that frightened me more than failure ever could. I might become successful but emotionally unavailable. And if that happens, what would I really have to offer you? You deserve more than a man who knows how to solve problems. You deserve a man who knows how to stay, who knows how to listen, who knows that sometimes love isn't built through grand gestures, it's built through presence. I've been thinking about that word a lot lately. Presence. It's strange how easy it is to be physically somewhere while your heart is somewhere else. I've done that more times than I want to admit. I've smiled while carrying invisible pressure. I've laughed while quietly questioning everything. I've reassured other people while secretly wishing someone would reassure me. Not because I was weak, because even the strongest heart eventually grows tired of carrying itself. That's the part of my life almost no one sees. People see confidence, they see discipline, they see direction. What they don't see is how many nights I spend questioning whether I'm becoming the kind of man my future family will actually need. Because one day, if we're blessed enough to sit across from each other at our own dinner table, I don't want you looking at me wondering where the real version of me disappeared. I want you to know him completely, even the imperfect parts, especially the imperfect parts, because perfection can impress someone. Only honesty can keep them. That's why I can't keep pretending anymore. The trouble I'm in isn't about one decision. It's about years of emotional habits that quietly shaped who I became. I learned to hide disappointment. I learned to silence fear. I learned to carry stress without speaking about it. People praised me for being strong, but they never realized sometimes strength was just another word for loneliness. I became so used to carrying everything myself that asking for help started feeling unnatural, almost impossible. Then something happened recently. It wasn't dramatic. No one else would probably even remember it, but I can't stop thinking about it. Someone looked at me and said, "You always seem fine." I smiled. I nodded. I thanked them, but inside something broke because they weren't wrong. That's exactly how I appear. Fine, calm, collected, predictable. But appearances can become dangerous when they stop matching reality. The truth is, I've been surviving on emotional silence for much longer than I realized. Every feeling that became inconvenient, I buried. Every fear that slowed me down, I ignored. Every moment I wanted someone to simply understand me, I convinced myself I didn't need it until now because now I'm talking to you. And somehow this conversation feels more honest than conversations I've had with people who've known me for years. Have you ever wondered why that happens? Why a stranger sometimes feels emotionally closer than familiar faces? I think it's because strangers don't know who you're expected to be. They only hear who you really are. And with you, I don't feel pressure to perform. I don't feel pressure to impress. I only feel pressure to tell the truth before it's too late. Maybe that's why I'm becoming attached. Not because I know everything about you, because I believe you'll care about the parts of me I've hidden from everyone else. I know that's a dangerous assumption. Trust should be earned, not imagined. I understand that, but my heart keeps moving before my logic can stop it. Every day I tell myself, slow down. Every night my thoughts find you again. Not your face, not your voice, your presence. The idea that somewhere in this world, there's a woman whose kindness might one day become my safest place. I don't know if you're praying for me yet. I don't know if you even believe we'll ever meet. But I want you to know something. I've started praying for you, not because I need someone perfect, because I hope you're protected while life prepares us. I hope the disappointments you've experienced don't convince you to stop believing in love. I hope the people who misunderstood you don't make you question your worth. I hope every heartbreak you've survived eventually becomes the reason you'll recognize genuine love when it finally arrives. Because I know what disappointment can do to a heart. It teaches you caution. Sometimes too much caution, that's exactly what happened to me. Instead of healing, I adapted. Instead of opening my heart again, I built stronger walls. The problem with walls is they don't only keep pain out, they also keep love from getting in. And now I'm standing in front of those walls wondering if I built a home or a prison. That's the trouble I couldn't explain before. I don't need someone to rescue me from the world. I need the courage to stop hiding from the life waiting beyond my own defenses. I need to believe that love isn't another risk to calculate. It's a gift to receive. You've already started teaching me that without saying a single word. Just the thought of you has softened parts of me that years of success couldn't touch. It makes me more patient, more reflective, more aware of the man I'm becoming. Sometimes I even catch myself asking, if she met me today, would she feel emotionally safe with me? That question changes everything, because suddenly winning arguments doesn't matter. Being understood matters. Being admired doesn't matter. Being trusted matters. Looking strong doesn't matter. Being emotionally present matters. You see, the version of me that used to chase achievements above everything else is slowly disappearing. Not because achievement is wrong, because it was never meant to replace connection. And for the first time in my life, connection feels more valuable than control. That's completely new for me. Honestly, it's terrifying because control has been my comfort zone for years. Without it, I feel exposed. I feel uncertain. I feel like I'm learning how to walk all over again. But maybe that's exactly what growth feels like. Maybe becoming the husband you deserve was never supposed to feel comfortable. Maybe it's supposed to challenge everything I thought made me strong. Maybe real strength begins the moment a man admits, I can't become who I meant to be alone. And that's why I'm asking for your help. Not through words, not through advice, just by continuing to exist somewhere ahead of me. Keep becoming the woman you're meant to become. I'll keep becoming the man I'm meant to become because I believe our paths aren't moving randomly. They're moving toward each other slowly, quietly, purposefully. But before that day arrives, there's one truth I still haven't spoken. The truth I've avoided since the very beginning. Because once I finally tell you, you'll understand that my greatest fear was never losing success. It was losing the chance to become the man you would have been proud to call your husband. And what happened a few days ago made that fear more real than ever before. I keep asking myself the same question. What if I had ignored that feeling? What if I had buried it one more time, worked a little harder, stayed a little busier, pretended a little longer that everything inside me was perfectly fine? Would my life be easier? Maybe. But it wouldn't be honest, and lately, honesty has become more important to me than comfort. That's why I'm still here talking to you. Because somewhere between everything I've built and everything I still hope to become, you have become the quiet voice I can no longer ignore. I know how unbelievable that sounds. How can someone you've never met already matter this much? I asked myself that question too, again and again and again. Every logical answer told me to stop. Every emotional truth told me to continue. So I stopped trying to explain it. Instead, I started paying attention to what it was changing inside me. And that's when I realized the real trouble wasn't outside my life. The real trouble was that my heart had already started making decisions before my mind was ready to admit them. That's dangerous for someone like me because I've always trusted my mind first. I've always believed emotions should follow reason, but this time, reason keeps arriving late. My heart gets there first. Hey, have you ever felt that? Like your soul already knows something while your mind is still trying to gather evidence. That's exactly where I've been living. It's exhausting. Every morning I wake up determined to stay focused, to think practically, to keep everything organized. Then something small happens. I see an elderly couple walking together, a husband gently opening the car door for his wife, a woman smiling at the man she spent decades with, a quiet conversation between two people who clearly know each other's hearts. And suddenly I'm not thinking about success anymore. I'm thinking about us, about whether one day I'll get to grow old beside you, whether one day our ordinary moments will become the greatest achievements of my life. That thought changes everything, because it reminds me that the future I've been building isn't supposed to end with accomplishments. It's supposed to end with companionship, with a home that feels peaceful, with children who feel safe, with a wife who never has to wonder whether she's carrying life alone. That's the husband I want to become. But becoming that man means confronting a truth I've avoided for years. I don't know how to fully let someone in. I've learned how to provide, I've learned how to protect, I've learned how to solve problems, but nobody ever taught me how to simply be emotionally present. Nobody taught me how to admit when I'm afraid. Nobody taught me that a man doesn't lose his strength when he says I need you. So, I spent years replacing vulnerability with responsibility. Whenever life became overwhelming, I worked harder. Whenever emotions became confusing, I became quieter. Whenever loneliness appeared, I convinced myself it was maturity. Now I understand it wasn't maturity, it was survival, and survival isn't the same as living. You deserve someone who truly lives beside you, not someone who merely survives next to you. That's why this has become so important, because every day I delay this emotional growth. I risk becoming a husband who is physically present but emotionally distant. That thought terrifies me. I never want you to sit beside me one day and feel alone. I never want our children to wonder why their father always seems somewhere else. I never want success to steal the moments that actually matter. That's the trouble. Not money, not failure, not reputation, perspective. I've spent too many years measuring life by achievements. Now I'm trying to measure it by relationships. And honestly, I'm still learning. Sometimes I catch myself falling back into old habits, trying to fix everything instead of simply listening, trying to control every outcome instead of trusting the process, trying to carry burdens alone because that's what I've always done. Then I imagine you, not speaking, not correcting me, just looking at me with quiet understanding. That image alone softens something inside me. It reminds me that love isn't another project to complete. It's a place where two imperfect people learn how to become better together. I've never wanted perfection, I've wanted peace. Real peace, the kind that doesn't disappear when life becomes difficult. But inside, everything was shifting. I was looking at my calendar, meeting after meeting, responsibility after responsibility. Deadlines, goals, commitments. The life I had carefully built was sitting right in front of me, organized, structured, predictable. Years ago, that sight would have made me proud. This time, it made me ask a question I couldn't escape. Where are you in all of this? Not your name, not your face, but your place. Where does my future wife exist inside the life I'm building today? Because suddenly I realized something painful. I had planned almost everything, except the space where love was supposed to live. There was room for success, room for ambition, room for achievement, room for everyone else's expectations. But had I actually made room for us? That question stayed with me the entire day, then the next, until I couldn't ignore it anymore. That's when I understood something that completely changed the way I look at my future. A man doesn't accidentally become a good husband. He prepares for it long before he meets his wife. Not by buying a house, not by earning more money, not by appearing successful, by becoming emotionally available, by learning patience, by choosing honesty, by healing the wounds that would otherwise become someone else's burden. That realization hit me harder than I expected because for years I thought preparation meant external success. Now I understand the greatest preparation happens inside the heart, and mine still needed work, a lot of work. There are memories I still carry, words people said years ago, disappointments I never completely processed. Moments where I convinced myself that depending on someone was simply too dangerous. Those moments shaped me quietly, without permission, without me realizing it, until one day I woke up emotionally independent but emotionally isolated. There's a difference. One is healthy, the other slowly convinces you that nobody could ever understand you. I've lived there longer than I care to admit. Sometimes people would ask me if I was okay. I'd smile, I'm fine. That answer became automatic, so automatic that eventually I stopped asking myself whether it was actually true. But lately the truth keeps interrupting me, not loudly, softly, like a whisper I can no longer silence. It says you don't have to carry everything alone anymore. I wish believing that were easy. It isn't. Because when you've spent years surviving alone, trust feels unfamiliar. Receiving love feels unfamiliar. Depending on someone feels unfamiliar. Even hope feels unfamiliar. That's why I keep talking to you, because somehow when I imagine my future wife listening to this, I don't feel judged. I feel understood. Maybe that's because real love doesn't begin with perfect people. It begins with honest ones, and I'm finally trying to become one. I need you to know something. If one day we meet, I don't want you falling in love with a version of me that's carefully edited. I don't want to impress you with perfection that doesn't exist. I don't want to spend years pretending I'm never afraid, because pretending creates distance, and distance slowly becomes loneliness. Even inside marriage, I've seen it happen. Couples living in the same home, sharing the same table, sleeping in the same room, yet emotionally they're worlds apart. I never want that to become our story. If I'm hurting, I want to tell you. If you're hurting, I want you to tell me. If life becomes difficult, I don't want either of us pretending we're okay just to protect the other. I want truth even when truth is uncomfortable, because I've learned something important. Silence protects peace for a moment. Honesty protects love for a lifetime. That's the kind of marriage I'm praying for, not one without problems. One where problems never become more important than the people facing them together. I've started imagining those ordinary moments, not vacations, not celebrations, the ordinary ones. Cooking dinner together after a long day, watching the rain from the window without saying much, holding your hand during difficult seasons, praying together when we don't know what tomorrow looks like, growing older without pretending we're still the same people we were years before. Those moments, they suddenly matter more to me than every achievement I've ever chased. Do you know why? Because achievements are remembered, but love is lived every single day. And that's the life I want with you. Not because it will be easy, because it will be real. There are still nights when fear finds me. Fear that I'll meet you too late. Fear that you'll think I've changed too much. Fear that someone else will reach you before I do. Then another fear appears, a much deeper one. What if I meet you, but the version of me standing in front of you still hasn't learned how to truly love? That fear changes everything, because suddenly the greatest race isn't towards success anymore. It's toward emotional maturity, toward becoming the husband you deserve. Every difficult lesson I experience now, every disappointment, every lonely season, every unanswered prayer, I no longer see them as punishment. I see them as preparation, preparation to love you better, preparation to understand your fears instead of dismissing them, preparation to become the man who chooses you every single day, not only when life feels easy. I've stopped asking God to simply bless my future. Now I ask Him to transform my heart first, because blessings without character eventually become burdens. I don't want to give you promises I can't keep. I want to become the kind of man whose actions speak louder than every romantic word. That's why I'm still here, still talking, still hoping you're listening. Because your existence, even somewhere in my future, has already started changing the decisions I make today. And if that sounds impossible, maybe love has always been impossible to explain before it becomes impossible to deny. But there's one final truth I've been carrying since the beginning of this conversation. One truth that explains why I said I need your help right now. I haven't asked for your help because I'm confused. I haven't asked because I'm broken. I've asked because the decision standing in front of me will determine whether I become the man you've been praying for, or the man who lets fear quietly steal the future we were meant to build together. And in the next moment, I'll finally tell you what that decision is. I've made you wait long enough. From the very first moment I said, I'm in trouble, I knew this conversation would eventually lead here. Not because I've been trying to create suspense, but because some truths are so personal that your heart needs time to prepare before hearing them. And maybe mine needed time too. So here it is. The help I need from you isn't something you can give me today. It isn't money. It isn't advice. It isn't a message. It isn't even your presence. The help I need is your patience. I need you to become the woman you're meant to become while I become the man you deserve. Because I'm finally beginning to understand something I spent years misunderstanding. Love isn't found. Love is prepared for. People spend so much time praying to meet the right person. Very few spend enough time becoming the right person. I don't want to make that mistake anymore. For so long, I believed my greatest responsibility was building a successful future. Now I realize my greatest responsibility is making sure that when you finally walk into my life, you never have to question whether you're emotionally safe with me. That realization changed everything. It changed the way I pray, it changed the way I think, it even changed the way I make decisions. Every decision now carries one silent question. Will this help me become a better husband? Not a richer man, not a more admired man. A better husband because one day titles won't matter. All words won't matter. Achievements won't matter. The only thing that will matter is how I made you feel every single day. Did you feel heard? Did you feel protected? Did you feel chosen? Did you feel like home? Those questions haunt me now. Not in a painful way, in a beautiful one. Because they remind me what actually matters. You know, I used to think emotional attachment was dangerous. I thought depending on another person would only create weakness. But lately, I've discovered something completely different. Attachment isn't dangerous when it's built on honesty. It's dangerous when it's built on pretending. Pretending you're okay when you're not. Pretending you don't care when you do. Pretending you're strong while quietly breaking inside. That's what destroys relationships, not vulnerability. Silence. And I've lived inside silence for far too long. There were nights when I almost convinced myself to stop believing in this conversation. I would tell myself, she's not here, she doesn't know you. You're talking to someone who hasn't even entered your life yet. Then another voice would quietly answer, maybe she's becoming who she needs to become at this exact same moment. That thought kept me going. Maybe right now you're learning forgiveness. Maybe you're healing from disappointment. Maybe you're discovering your own worth after years of doubting it. Maybe you're asking God the same question I've been asking. When will I finally meet the person you've been preparing for me? If that's true, then maybe neither of us is waiting. Maybe we're both being prepared. There's comfort in that thought because preparation has purpose. Waiting without purpose becomes frustration. Preparation creates hope. Hope changes everything. I've started looking at difficult seasons differently. Every setback, every lonely evening, every unanswered prayer, instead of asking, why is this happening to me? I now ask, what is this preparing me for? The answer almost always leads back to you, not because life revolves around romance, because love reveals the parts of us that success never can. Successes teach us confidence, love teaches humility. Successes teach us independence, love teaches surrender. Successes teach us achievement, love teaches sacrifice. I've spent years becoming successful. Now I'm learning how to love. Honestly, the second lesson is much harder because success allows you to stay in control. Love asks you to trust. Trust has always frightened me. Not because people are untrustworthy, because trusting someone means giving them the power to affect your heart. I've avoided that for years. Now, I don't want to avoid it anymore. I want to deserve it. I want to become someone worthy of your trust. Not through promises, through consistency. Because promises are easy. Consistency is expensive. It costs your pride, it costs your selfishness, it costs your comfort. But that's the price I'm finally willing to pay. I keep imagining our first real conversation. Not the perfect version, the honest one. I imagine telling you everything I've shared here, every fear, every mistake, every lonely season, every lesson. And I wonder, will you smile because you understand, or will you quietly realize you've been walking a similar road all along? I hope it's the second one, because I don't want to rescue you, and I don't want you to rescue me. I want us to recognize each other. Two people who chose healing before meeting. Two people who refused to let disappointment define their future. Two people who decided that love was worth preparing for. That's the help I need from you. Please, don't lose hope before we meet. Don't let temporary heartbreak convince you that permanent love doesn't exist. Don't allow disappointment to harden the beautiful parts of your heart. Stay kind. Stay honest. Stay soft. The world will try to convince you those qualities are weaknesses. They're not. They're exactly what I'm praying still exists when our paths finally cross. Because I'm fighting to preserve those qualities inside myself, too. There are days when becoming cynical would be easier. There are days when closing my heart would feel safer. There are days when believing in forever feels almost impossible. Then I think about you, not as an idea anymore, as my future. And suddenly giving up no longer feels like an option. I don't know when we'll meet. I don't know where. I don't know how life will arrange that moment. But I know this. When it happens, I don't want to introduce you to a man who spent his life running from vulnerability. I want to introduce you to a man who finally became brave enough to love without hiding. That's why I've been asking for your help. Because your existence gives my growth direction. Your future gives my present meaning. Your unseen prayers strengthen mine. And even if we've never spoken, you've already inspired me to become someone better. But there's one final thing I have to tell you. One truth I've held back since the beginning. Because this entire conversation, every confession, every fear, every hope has really been leading to one decision. A decision I'm making tonight. A decision that will shape every step I take until the day I finally look into your eyes. And when I tell you what that decision is, you'll finally understand why I couldn't stay silent any longer. If you've stayed with me until this moment, then you've already done more for me than you probably realize because staying is rare. People often stay while life feels easy. Very few stay long enough to hear the parts of someone that don't sound impressive. The uncertain parts, the fearful parts, the unfinished parts. You stayed, even if only in my imagination you stayed, and somehow that changes something inside me. When I started talking to you, I believed I was carrying a problem. Now I realize I wasn't carrying a problem. I was carrying a version of myself that had been waiting years to finally tell the truth. The truth is, I'm not asking you to save me. I never was.